and we're talking about hate speech, like the freedom of speech and its kind of limitations. And we live in the United States where freedom of speech is considered one of the most important freedoms we have as citizens.
Yeah, I agree. It's an integral part of human right and freedom of expression.
But sometimes the human freedom of speech is used as hate speech under the guise of freedom of speech. In 2011, a funeral was being held for a soldier who lost his life in Iraq. Westboro Baptist Church attended the funeral protesting, holding signs up like these, with heinous things drawn in, like more than just thank God for dead soldiers and God hates the USA. It also said things like thank God for 9/11 and horrible stuff like that. And so it brings us to this. The definition of hate speech is speech that is intended to offend, insult, intimidate, or threaten an individual based on a trait or attribute such as sexual orientation, religion, color, gender, or disability. In this case, the Supreme Court voted 8-1 on the side of the protesters. Now, how did these people who held up these horrible signs get away with something like this completely free? Well, in the point of view of the Supreme Court, they weren't holding up anything to personally attack them. It was just voicing their political concerns that they had to have, like their right to have an opinion.
So you're telling me that hate speech is protected and allowed by the government? It's pretty messed up.
The government isn't so much protecting as it is actually just free speech.
So anything can be said like this with no consequences?
Not exactly. Because of incidences like this, in relation to the Constitution's First Amendment, legislators have not taken any measures to forbid hate speech because it's too hard to define. You just can't. Many people who say it can't be defined just say that because they think it's not there at all. Most acts of hate speech actually can be defended if done correctly. Now, under no circumstances am I telling you to go out and yell offensive things at people under the terms of free speech. I'm just explaining just how hard it is to explicitly define hate speech, if it can be defined at all. Although, yes, it does have an actual definition, as I stated earlier, but as I've just explained, it can get kind of tricky.
So does this only happen in schools and workplaces, or can it happen on a political or global scale?
Well, to kind of put into context what I meant by tricky, I mean the director of the Technology and Cyber Law Clinic of the University of Boston School of Law, long name, Andrew Sellers, wrote a 33-page law review essay on different interpretations, definitions, issues, and a whole bunch of other philosophies of hate speech, along with other theories. In this, he looks at it academically, legally, and in online interpretation. And with this, I'm mainly going to focus on the legal aspect of things. Now, when a offensive video was released on the internet, it's been taken down since then. Islamic government, it was a very anti-Muslim video. Islamic governments were outraged to see this video because of all of the riots and just the unrest that this caused. And during a public assembly, the UN, they brought up a point, which was, why is it that people are allowed to talk about our prophet and our religion in such a way, but in places like Germany and other countries in Europe, it's forbidden to even deny the Holocaust or talk poorly about Jews? And it was a major point they had. And with your question, it does happen in schools as well. In 2011, Williams College, Massachusetts, had an incident where someone wrote, "All African Americans must die." Now, I'm substituting the word for obvious reasons, but as it stands, my point is that hate speech also happens in schools like college campuses. Now think about what also relates to this kind of thing. that is talked about a lot in our society, hate crime. Hate crime is also something we hear about all the time in news and just some people read the newspaper and all that. You hear it everywhere. Now, in this instance, may not necessarily relate to hate speech. But both instances raised controversy. Along with that example, there was another example in California where students were allowed to wear anti-gay stickers or anti-LGBT as long as they didn't harass students who were part of that community. And the community around them, or well, not the community, but the people outside the school, parents, some of the teachers in the school thought this was terrible. They didn't like it at all. And one of the teachers, Haley Oberman, said that although in the point of Tinker versus Des Moines, which I'll bring up in a second, it's still considered hateful and hate speech because there's a specific target group that is being confronted and targeted. Now, in that particular instance, it may not relate to hate speech, but when she was talking about Mary Beth Tinker back in 1969 during the Vietnam War, students planned to come to the school with armbands and not talk throughout the entire day to protest on the violence and the loss of soldier life. The principal, as I mentioned, Mary Beth Tinker, suspended any students she saw wearing armbands and things like that. Now, in this case, because the principal forbid it, but it was the students' sense of freedom of speech, were they targeted? Or was it considered hate speech because they were protesting a war? In that similar situation, is it technically hate speech because the principal allowed it? And in the point of view of the assistant superintendent, Laura Fisher, it was sometimes people can be uncomfortable because of an opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bullying. Now, I'm talking about on all this global scale and out of country stuff. There was an instance in this school system, Shelby County, in the high school, where when the new president was elected, there was a classroom of predominantly Hispanic teachers, and someone on the board wrote in big marker, "Build a wall and get out." And that loops us back around to, can this be defined as hate speech? Because a lot of people in the school would think it's a joke. It was funny. I wasn't being serious, stuff like that. And in that case, or in relation to Westboro Baptist Church, although that is a very extreme case, who's in the wrong? The people in the joke, or the people who had every right to be there, or the people being targeted? And so what my main point here is that hate speech is a weird line that can't be solidified, but it is there. And so next time you say something, stop and think.